When I was 18, I returned to India for the first time. The immense urban slums of Mumbai are shocking. The air is so thick with smog and pollution, and the smells are so strong that you get a cough and your snot turns black. There are vast stretches of immense slums, mile after mile, and in every nook and cranny, you're surrounded by desperate families, begging for help, starving bodies. The rivers and streets are thick with garbage, pollution, desperation. I had never seen such concentrated hunger or despair. And there's no way for the trash to go, no toilets to flush it all away, just shacks built out of trash, on trash, surrounded by trash, stacked together into crowded communities. According to the World Bank, over half of the people in Mumbai live as squatters in slums and shanties, and another 30% simply live on the street. When I came home, I had a newfound purpose, a new passion. I had a burning question to try to find out why. I wanted to dig down and find the root cause of this immense suffering. It wasn't like when I saw a handful of homeless people on the street and I could fathom how they could have ended up that way, and I can imagine a way out. This was something much bigger happening. So after I came home, I started finding courses, doing research, trying to find these answers, trying to learn more about the issues of the world. But the more I learned, the more upset I became. The issues I saw were part of much bigger issues, beyond those immediate concerns I had witnessed. The huge communities without food, shelter, basic sanitation, the polluted rivers, the smoggy air, the mounds of waste. That's not just happening in Mumbai. It's happening all over the world, and it's even happening down the street in Baltimore City. I learned that in the US, our lifestyles are far more wasteful than in any other country on the planet. Per person, Americans use and waste far more energy, water, food, resources than any other country on the planet. It would take at least 5 more planets to sustain a population living the way ours does. The resources that we have, that we use, are coming from all over the world. There are factories, there are mines, there are logging operations that are set up all over the world. And wherever they are, people are being displaced, ecosystems are being destroyed, entire lives and communities are being wiped out. I had never thought much about using something once and tossing it away until I learned more about where these things are coming from, that we're extracting these raw materials, we're manufacturing them, creating pollution, having laborers working in sweatshops, and then the travel for these items to get to us, and then we have all these things that we use once, and we throw them out. I visited the Narmada Dam in India, a huge area of land where people had once lived off of the land, farming, but now is underwater. They lost their means of survival, they lost the resources they used to rely on, and they were displaced. And these displaced people end up in these urban slums, end up squatting on land that's no longer theirs, without the resources they had for survival anymore. And this happens with so many of our large-scale projects. Meanwhile, the human population is exploding exponentially. And the damage we're causing even more so, because each of us is using more energy, creating more waste, using more resources than ever before in all of history. So we're depleting our soils, we're deforesting habitats, we're throwing off ecological balance, and we're polluting the atmosphere. all at incredible rates. We're using dirty energy that is choking the skies with code red air quality days, where it's unhealthy to go outside and breathe. And we're exploding the land to get that energy. As I learned the science and the ecology, and I started to understand the ways that it's all interconnected, I started to understand that the luxuries of the few of us come at the sacrifice of so much. From mass extinctions, to our polluted atmosphere, to our diminishing fresh water supply, the crisis that undermines our lives felt really overwhelming. At first, I felt despair as I learned about the ways that these huge problems are interconnected with our lifestyles, with my own lifestyle. Then I noticed others taking action. At first, I felt guilty for not doing anything, but I also wondered, would anything I do actually make a difference? But there were people who were working on beautiful solutions. And they reached out to me and they invited me in. They taught me what they knew. And I not only joined in, I ended up taking action and taking charge. I cleaned up streets and planted trees. I advocated on climate policy in Capitol Hill and around my state. I organized conferences. I worked on human rights campaigns in India and sustainability efforts on my own campus. I lived in communities in some of the most rugged, remote, and beautiful places in the world that were built around sustainability, compassion, and health. And I discovered how nourishing a place can be. I wanted to come back and recreate that for others back at home. And I became passionate about helping others find their way to create their own solutions. We are all interconnected. Each of our choices has ripple effects throughout the world. Looking at the ecology of our lifestyles, we can trace everything we touch every day, from our water to our laptops, from our meals to our electricity, from our clothes to our cars, to other parts of our global community, of other parts of our ecology. And at first, this interconnectedness felt really overwhelming to me, because I saw the damage it was causing. But once I became more purposeful about my choices, that also became my power. And by joining others who are enacting visions for a safe, a healthy, a joyful world, I gained so much hope and inspiration. By taking action, by getting plugged in to a community of caring people, I got inspired, and that inspired others. Every day we're bombarded by commercials, letting us know what we need to buy, things to consume to prove ourselves and our worth. But we can counter those messages with creative expressions of our own and activate priorities that benefit all of us. And more than ever, our society changes drastically from generation to generation, decade to decade, year to year. And as always, we're influenced by our understanding and our beliefs, our community and our culture. After all, in India, I saw that culture and community was incredibly different. In each city I lived in each campus I was at, and at each workplace I saw, the culture around me was influencing my habits, my priorities, my actions. And that helped me to see that we can build and shape our communities to help us focus on the things that matter to us. We can have a community of people to support us and focusing on gratitude instead of always striving to acquire more new things. And these communities that we create can help inspire others to see the possibilities, to believe in the alternatives. In isolation, no one thing you or I will do can change everything, but it will change something. And when we're strategic, all those somethings can line up together and make something true and deep and important happen. After all, in a few short years, I saw that our university changed drastically in our commitment to addressing climate change, in building responsible green buildings, and protecting green spaces. I saw our state policies and regulations change after all the advocacy we did. Even more amazingly, my skeptical friends and family even started to change their perspectives and their habits. We feel pain and grief when we recognize what's happening in the world, and that's a reflection of our love for the world, for people, for the planet. When we open our eyes to the tragedies of our time, it allows us to act with compassion. It allows us to recognize the sacrifices that are being made to get all these resources in our hands. And that cultivates our gratitude. When we try to save money, we buy cheap, mass-produced goods created in sweatshops that are laced with toxins. When we're trying to save money, we're trying to secure our future, our safety. But what if making short-sighted choices undermines our entire future of the planet and our safety and security as a whole? And if we're always seeking out our next destination, getting the next best thing, that leaves little space for us to appreciate what we already have, to enjoy each moment. When we see violence towards an individual, it makes our heart break. It makes us cringe. But when we see so much structural violence happening at this global scale, how do we deal with it? How do we face it? How do we handle that pain? But really, that pain is a representation of our care, of our love for all living things, and it's so important not to shut down to it. Keeping a broader awareness of global problems doesn't have to mean that we're sacrificing ourselves, limiting ourselves. It's simply remembering the ecological reality that we are all interconnected, that resources that we have are taken from somewhere, and that our choices, all of our choices, are always making a difference. Our mindset determines our reality, and we can support one another to stay reminded of this in the midst of all the distractions. When we zoom in and we focus on just ourselves and our consumption, when we zoom out and look at the entire planet as a whole, we can remember that gratitude for what we have, and we can make smarter choices. We can choose to invest more in things that last longer. We can choose to make things ourselves with our own creativity. We can grow our own healthy food, and we can rely on people within our communities who are treated fairly and who get paid fairly. So we can actually gain a lot when we step back and look at our systems as a whole, as our planet and our community as a whole. When we look at the well-being of all, instead of looking at just one factor, maybe our own selves, maybe profit, we can look at the overall efficiency of our entire planet and how we're using all of our resources, how that impacts all of our lives and our well-being. When I look around and I see how we're living and how much destruction it's causing, I have to stop and remember, things haven't always been like this. They aren't like this everywhere, and they won't always be like this. We can each create the communities that we want to live in, and we all have a role to play in doing that. What role will you choose? Thank you.